support the chair yoga teachers as they're getting their wisdom out there to the world. So thank you for being here. I'm usually here Wednesdays, 11 o'clock. That's my goal. Last week, I think I was a little late or a little early. I can't remember. But I mean, I try and get here around that time typically. And just try and share some nuggets from my teaching that I hope are helpful for you. So today I want to talk about chair yoga. I got my chair here. So many ways to use chairs. I remember when I first started learning about chair yoga, it was like, how do you do warrior two on a chair? It was like stuff like that. And um, that's just, and then I was working, I was working in a nursing home assisted living facility teaching chair yoga before I started to see a lot more of it, a lot of people teaching it. But one of the big teachers of chair yoga was an Iyengar teacher back in the 90s. And he was like Mr. Incredible shape. He was very tall and vata and he had MS. And so it made a lot of sense the way he taught chair yoga for that kind of person. He was very athletic, very strong, and then he had MS. And so he was trying to do things like, how could I get into this pose that I'm used to getting into with a chair? Because then it will support some of that muscle weakness he was having because of the multiple sclerosis. So like, I totally get why he was teaching like that, and it makes so much sense. But here I was working with a population where that kind of abduction of the leg, like just completely, not possible. So I started to realize that it's really like it's so dependent on the person and the population you're working with, which is why I went and trained in Vinyasa after that, and I still train in Vinyasa, like because I started to learn how to adapt stuff to individuals and just in some ways you can make some generalizations about populations. Like for example, we can make generalizations about tall, athletic guys who are having some muscle weakness and want to use chair yoga. Like that's what I would do with them because they were. Or the other one is Warrior One. Like this. You've seen this one too, right? So or like a lunge like this. So and that it's completely applicable to certain populations. And then it's not applicable to other populations. So I started working in a nursing home in 1995, and I was working with people with cognitive challenges and lots of mobility challenges. And then on top of it, lots of stuff like heart disease, arthritis, um, lots of IBS digestion stuff. Uh, and certainly fatigue would be another piece of it, right? So I was working with all that stuff with folks. And the realization to me was that I cannot use this sort of standard chair yoga and then adapt it. Like there was just no way. Although I still see vestiges of that chair yoga everywhere in the yoga community. And it's that same sort of like we have such a disconnect, especially folks that have a lot of mobility and hypermobility. It's just like, oh, I didn't realize somebody couldn't do that. And I don't have anything. I don't have no negativity, no hate on that. It's lovely. It's just not necessarily appropriate, right? Um, so what is appropriate? What is appropriate is a lot of seated stuff because of the energy and the fatigue issues that I mean, particularly for that population, folks who are dealing with chronic health challenges. Oh, and by the way, I did a survey recently, and because I was trying to figure out the name of this workshop that I'm teaching this workshop on chair yoga in April. And so I was going to call it chair yoga for chronic health challenges. And then I got feedback that a lot of people think that means bad health, chronic health, right? But it's really a medical term. And the medical term means you have something like um, an autoimmune disorder or heart disease, like things that are long term, or a COPD, a lung disorder. Um, what it really means is you've got these long term health issues, and they are not going away. Like they might get, but they can get better. You can support them with things like good nutrition and good medical care and good, of course, preventive things like yoga. So I just wanted to put that out there because the workshop I'm teaching is not so much about like people who are super sick. It's more about that people have these diseases, and the reason I'm doing it is because it's a population health issue. 6 out of 10 Americans have one or more have one chronic disease. 4 out of 10. 4 out of 10 have two or more over a certain age, but that's a lot of people. Recently, I was talking to one of my counselors, one of my people that consults for my work with Subtle Yoga, and she consults on marketing. And she was looking at the website we're putting together for this workshop, and she said, "This is," and she doesn't know anything about yoga, and she like she doesn't do yoga, she doesn't know anything about it. But she looked at what we're doing, and she said, "Oh my gosh." This is what everybody needs. And I was like, yes, like it's not just yoga teachers who think that, everybody thinks that. So anyway, that's what I hope to do, is to be able to share this stuff with you in this workshop that's coming up. And I put some we don't have the link yet, but I put the dates there in case you're interested. Okay, so what I want to show you today is how do you work with a chair with Cakravakasana. So some people don't know what Cakravakasana is. It's kind of the uncut cow. That's the way I learned it 20 something years ago, is the uncut cow pose. So Cakravakasana is tabletop to child's pose, essentially. But what you're doing in tabletop is you're lengthening the spine, right? And you're not dumping too much. You're trying to keep the spine long, lengthen, and then you go back to, and you bend your elbows. It's not this kind of child's pose. You bend your elbows and go back to child. So it's a really good pose for the low back. Really good. I mean, this is a pose that I do every day, almost every day. I'd say 5 days a week I do it. Um, just because I love the way that it feels. I love the way that it stretches the lumbosacral fascia area. I just love the way it feels in my whole low back and pelvis, right? So I teach this one a lot, and it's really good for low back stuff. But here's the big problem: you have to comfortably be able to stand up on your knees, and that is a huge issue for many, many people. Getting on their knees is just, I mean, in the yoga world, we're like, get on your knees. Of course, it's what we always do. But out there in the real world, it's just not happening for a lot of people. So rather than getting on the knees, you can use a chair. And so you put the hands on the side of the chair, and you can start with the legs nice and long. Of course, this is assuming that this amount of flexion of the spine is comfortable for somebody. Some people it isn't. But, I'm going to assume this amount of flexibility, right? So the idea is long spine as you come forward and lift your chest and face, like almost a little cobra action. And then when you go back, you can play with your feet and bend your knees a little bit. So it's almost like a down dog, but I'm not working on the legs so much. When I come forward, I'm straightening the legs, lifting the chest and face, and kind of gliding my chest through the upper arm. And then when I go back, bending the knees. Now there are what I've seen a lot in chair yoga is more like down dog to up dog, which for some people that feels fantastic. And that's like for the guy, you know, the guy I was talking about before with who like for some people this is just like, whoa, that feels so good. No problem. But that's risky. I don't teach that for lots of people that I work with, especially elders, right? It's like you have to have balance, like you can fall, the chair on the wall is helpful for this. Even for this, chair on the wall is helpful because it just gives you that extra, confidence. But that idea of like straight legs here as I lengthen forward, and then bent knees as I come back gives me a little bit more of that child's pose kind of stretch in the low back. That's what I'm going for here. Inhale as you go forward, draw the belly in, exhale as you go back. Give it a try. I don't want to stop doing it because it feels so good at my back today. So when you inhale, you can do the straight legs if you want. And this is the kind of thing, this is the kind of pose that you can do many, many times for a lot of people. Of course, there's some shoulder stuff here. The shoulders have to feel good, but as much, I'm not doing as much of that flexion of the shoulder as if I was here, right? Okay. So let me know what you think about that. I encourage you to give it a try. Let me know what you think about it. And let me know if there's other things you want me to talk about on these weekly live streams. I hope you will consider joining my training. It's April 13th and April 27th. It's from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Eastern Time. Everything is recorded and will be available for more than a year. All the recordings, you get all of the stick figures of all the practices. And we're going deeply into how to support people with chair yoga, fatigue, and low energy with heart health, supporting heart health. I'm not talking about treating any heart disease, supporting heart health, supporting joint health, and supporting digestive health. So that's what we're going to be going into. Keep a lookout for it. Thank you so much for being here. Please leave a comment. I'll see you next week.